Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I am Jaylee. This is Jaylee's Corner, and this is my review for The Have and the Have Nots. This is season 4, episode 20, titled The Enemy Called Trust. Man, this was a good episode. Mainly because of the ending. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So the episode does pick off where the last one left off, thank God. Where Veronica and Catherine are outside of the house that they didn't set on fire. Yes, they set Catherine and Jim's house on fire. So Jim and David is running up. First of all, I'm like, why everybody walking up? Why ain't nobody pulling up? I mean, where y'all cars at? Like, what's going on here? So, they're like, what are you guys doing? And she's like, we're watching the house burn down. And, they're like, why would you burn the house down? How are we going to explain this? And Catherine says, the counselor told me to do it. And Veronica's like, yeah, I told her to do it. And she's like, why would you do that? That's crazy. And she's like, they have a body, Jim, Dove. They have evidence. They have carbon fibers. They have fingerprints. They have blood splatter. We burnt the house down because they can't match any of the evidence on Jennifer's body to the house if the house is burned down. So Jim was like, Veronica, I had the house cleaned. And she's like, you had the house cleaned. You also had the body removed, Jim, but we see what happened with that. Which is true. Jim, you did have the house cleaned. Y'all thought y'all got the whole body situation, under control. But lo and behold, Mama Rose got y'all ass together and she brought the body back. So, Jim and Veronica Veronica and David was kind of going back and forth about, oh, I know secrets. Oh, I know secrets too. No, because Jim was telling David, he was about to say to David, you need to get your wife. And David was basically like, I don't have nothing to say to her. We can talk about whatever in divorce court. So they were going back and forth, but, it wasn't worth anything to be mentioned. So, yeah, the house burning down. Veronica and Catherine walked away while David called the fire department like, hey, we need a fire truck or whatever. I do want to know how they're going to explain the house burning down. How? Which is crazy because when they thought Jeffrey had hit the girl and the house was at Veronica and them house, Veronica burnt down that house. Now a dead body pop up and their house burned down. People's houses don't just burn down all willingly, especially rich white folk. You know what I'm saying? Or especially rich folk. Someone has to always set the house on fire. Y'all don't have no electrical problem. So I do want to know how they're gonna explain their house burning down the same night that Jennifer Salason's body is found and dropped off at a news station, and with a note on it saying the crier's body or whatever. The next thing we see, I'm gonna talk about Charles, is we see the police at the hotel, and they're in Candace's room, and they're saying, she's not here, we must have dismissed her, and they're leaving. So as they're leaving, Charles and his crew is coming. So Charles looks and he sees them and he keeps walking, going to his room. So he goes into his room and him and Landon are in there talking, and Landon's talking about, we have to do this, we have to do that. And Charles is like, Landon, you like your job? He's like, yeah, of course I like my job. He was like, why did you call the police? So Charles knows that Landon is the person who called the police on Candace. And he don't like it. And we know when Charles don't like something, he is not a nice cat. You know what I'm saying? When Charles don't like something, he becomes Chucky. And I think I like Chucky. You know what I'm saying? I like a little, I don't know. I have to see how bad Chucky get. Because, it's a little bit sexy. And I figured out that the same actor who plays Charles on The Have and the Have Nots, I watched this other show called The Queen of the South. And the same actor plays Agent Lawyer on that other show that I don't review, but I do love Queen of the South. And I liked Agent Lawyer, but he got like a beard. He looked a little different. So I didn't know it was him until like last week. I was like, that's Charles. Hey, Charles. Hey, agent lawyer. But he's a little cute little thing. Anywho, Charles is checking Landon. Like, look, I made it clear to you that you were supposed to help her. Why would you call the police? Why would you do that? And he um, he was like, but why? And he was like, what? So when Landon tried to ask Charles, why do you want me to save her? Charles was pissed about that. He was like, what? And he's like, with all due respect, why is she so special? And he's like, women isn't your thing, right? You like men, right? And then he said, well, yeah. He was like, okay, well, that answers your question. Basically saying you don't see why she's so special because you don't like females, so you don't get it. My thing is, I think if Jeffrey was a criminal, Landon would try to save his ass too, because Landon like Jeffrey like the same. Well, yeah, Landon do like Jeffrey the same way where Charles like Candace, but he's like, look, I just don't know why you're trying to deal with like a street level criminal, which offends Charles. And he was like, what if I told you I was a street level criminal before? And he was like, I would be very shocked. And he was like, well, me and her aren't that different. And Landon was like, but I think you are. And Charles was like, well, that would be a fatal mistake. I'm like, go ahead, Charles. Threaten that man without threatening that man. But you threatening that man like, look, don't underestimate me because you think I'm political and I ain't, ready to get down and dirty. We already know that last episode, Charles told Candace that he had a whole different past. And his past basically got wiped out. And he got put on a whole new path. And now he's the presidential nominee. So, Charles is, Landon's still trying to say, you shouldn't talk to her. And Charles like, look, I'm going to say this one more time. And, I'm not used to, or I don't do well with having to repeat myself. Help her. That's all he said. Help her. And then Charles was like, well, okay, he was like, do what I said. You know what I'm saying? Go do it. And he was like, that'll be all. And he sends Landon on about his way. But he said it to a way to where he stopped Charles dead in his tracks when Landon was trying to talk. And Charles gave him a look. Like, if looks could kill, Charles would have right then and there buried and killed Landon. And Landon looked a little terrified. I think for the first time he realized Charles is not to be fucked with. And Landon keeps talking to Charles as if he's a regular nominee and as if his opinion really matters. And Charles keeps having to let him know, you ain't running shit, bruh. Do what I told you or else. Okay? Don't make that fatal mistake. So, and he gave him like a look of death. I'm like, okay, Charles. So when Landon leaves out, he says, send Vincent in. So Vincent comes in. He's like, what did you tell him? Talking about the police. And he's like, well, I told him, we have this whole floor. And, if we see her, we'll call them. And he's like, well, okay, good. And he asked, like, when she come back, do you want to see her? He's like, I don't know. I'll let you know. So the next thing we see is Candace, and she goes to the hotel room where Lil Q was murdered. And she's breaking down like, oh my God, because she sees all the bullet holes and she sees just the carnage of it, blood everywhere, things like that. And she's breaking down and she's crying like just tears and tears and tears. And she sits on the bed and she's just like, where are you, God? Where are you? Because she's probably having that notion of, you took my son. I don't know what to do. I need you. And that was her moment of, in private, calling on God, because you can't do nothing else besides calling on the Lord if you lose your child. And so she was having that moment of just, total surrender of her feelings because she was heartbroken. I mean, she was, she played that scene, wonderfully, Tika Sumpter. She did a really, really great job with breaking down without having to do all the wailing and the screaming and the snot. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can have a breakdown of a moment and it doesn't include looking broken down to where you're like just crazy looking. But it was a quiet breakdown. But you can clearly see she was, devastated that her son was actually dead. we see a little scene of Justin at the police station, and there's two cops who were talking about going to talk to Wyatt about the whole Jennifer Salison thing. So he's listening, of course, and he stops one of the cops, and he's like, "Hey, you're talking about the Jennifer Salison thing? You going to see Crier?" He's like, "Well, you always trying to get, we know you passed the detective test or whatever, but you're not a detective yet. You have to wait." He's like, "Man, come on, how am I going to learn if I don't go with y'all on certain assignments?" But the whole time he talking, it's another cop behind them who's sitting there, and he's just kind of watching. Now, I don't know if that was just bad editing and the cop was watching and he wasn't supposed to see he was watching, but he was watching. And they do let Justin go with them on the scene. Well, no, we were supposed to see that, because after Justin walked away, the same cop was still looking. So I'm like, he a spy for somebody. I wonder if he's like a spy for Veronica, but we don't know. Next we see Landon and Jeffrey, and they kind of meet up at the hotel, just in passing. And Landon is like, "Who was that guy in your room? Did you know he was going to be there? Is he stalking you?" He was basically badgering Jeffrey about Justin. And Jeffrey's like, "Well, no, yeah, I do know him. I did know he was going to be in my room. He's not stalking me. He just kind of shows up to where I am sometimes, but, he's fine." And he like, he's probably crazy. And Jeffrey's like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, think about it, because he also said, well, is he straight?" And he was like, "Well, he says he is. He says he is." So he was like, he's probably crazy. He says he's straight, but he's really not. He's following you around. He's popping up everywhere. He's probably crazy. And he was like, "Well, no, he does that because of my mom. She has something or whatever." And they're saying that who pops up? Veronica crazy ass. So, Veronica pops up, but she's telling Jeffrey that he needs to come home to basically tend to Melissa. And Jeffrey like, "I ain't going home." So Veronica then looks at Landon like, "Girl, little girl, don't you gotta go fix your lipstick?" And Landon was like, "Well, it's probably better than your foundation." I'm like, go ahead with the snapbacks and the whole look go between. So Landon leaves and he walks away. And Veronica and Jeffrey are left having a conversation. It was basically about a bunch of back and forth. You know how Tyler Perry be, So Tyler Perry, I'm going to say fuck you a little bit, because some of the stuff was very repetitive, but, I get it. Veronica still wanted him to come home to tend to Melissa. Like, she's still pregnant. You want to keep her safe. And Jeffrey like, "No, I'm not coming home." Veronica does say, "Well, you have to come home, because don't forget, I'm going to court in the morning." Veronica been on her way to court in the morning for at least 18 seasons. For at least 18 episodes. She been on her way to court the whole, just for a long ass time. This is another episode of something that is taking forever for one day to pass. So, yeah, because they found that goddamn body, at least that was last season. God damn it, Tyler Perry. Speed this shit up, okay? I just thought about that. She been waiting to go to court the next day, probably since back in May. Okay, it is freaking August. What the fuck? So she's saying, "Yeah, I have to go to court, to make sure that their body doesn't get into evidence. So if you want me to do that, you need to go back home." And he was like, "I don't care. I'm not coming back home." She still says to him, "Come home, do what I say. I want you to take care of her. You have to help her change them sheets. I don't want her getting her blood on I don't want her messing up my good sheets." He like, is that all you care about?" She was like, "Yeah." So, as they're talking, you see Candace walk through looking like a zombie. And, Rock goes, "I knew I smelled something." And Jeff was like, "Oh, man." And she's like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, well, she probably found out." It's like, "Found out about what?" She was like, "Her son died today." And she was like, "Oh, isn't that crazy?" But she said it in a way to where, just, Veronica's like, as they call her, the ice queen. She has no remorse, no heart. She doesn't feel anything. So when she said it was kind of like a nonchalant, "Oh, I don't care, whatever, whatever." And, oh, and she said, "Oh, so sad." But it was like with no emotion. So I'm like, "Okay, bitch, whatever." So, Jeffrey walks away, but Veronica still saying, "You better come home," and he just don't say nothing. He does walk up to Candace, and she's waiting for the elevator. He's like, "Candace, are you okay?" And she, doesn't even respond, because of course she's just, on a mission. Next, we see the detective, and he does get to Wyatt's house. And Wyatt is there with the girl. I found out her name. Her name is Anna. It might be Hannah. I'm not sure. But I'm going to say that it's Anna because we already have a Hannah on the show. But I couldn't tell which one he said. I'm going to call her Anna, though, with A. A-N-N-A. So, Justin is also there. When they walk in, the guy said his name was like George. He doesn't say who he is. I think he's just a detective, though. But when he walked in, and then Wyatt like, oh yeah, this is Anna. So then Justin is like, oh, is she your girlfriend? And Wyatt turned to look, and he recognized Justin. He was like, does this guy have to be here? And so the George detective guy was like, what? And he was like, never mind. So they're having a conversation, and Wyatt is like, where's Jennifer Salison? I had a deal with her. Me and Wyatt had immunity. Are you guys going to honor that deal? And he was like, yeah, but right now I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about her murder. And he was like, murder? What are you talking about? She was killed? And he was like, I told you that over the phone. He was like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You told me that she was dead. Like, I thought she had like a heart attack, that she had a heart attack or something. I didn't know that she was murdered. He's like, yeah, she was shot 8 times at point blank range. And so, that's what I'm here to talk about. And Wyatt starts singing like a goddamn canary. He like, yeah, she helped me to get my funds released. I got $12 million. My family hated her for years. They had such bad blood. I don't know why. And I'm like, damn, Wyatt. You just sing it. And the weird part about it is when Wyatt seems wired, he has this look that makes him look high, that to me makes him seem like he's not trusted, that he's not trustworthy. I'm surprised the Anna girl didn't interrupt and say, hey, this isn't good for his sobriety. If you guys want to talk to him, come talk to him later, or talk to his attorneys. With the dang on George guy, he kept just talking like, oh yeah, tell me more. So your parents hate him, and blah, blah. And I'm like, Wyatt. I mean, the scene for me felt fake. It felt like it was a horrible acting job on the part of George, the Asian detective. I just didn't like the scene at all. I felt like he was trying too hard. The scene to me just didn't feel right in some way. He's like, tell me more about your parents not liking her. He's like, well, are my parents going to be arrested? He's like, well, right now we're just working on, building a case. But I'm like, I just didn't like that scene. So he's like, well, I'll tell you more, but only if you get that guy to leave. Talking about Justin. And he was like, wait, what did I do? And he was like, I don't like you standing behind me. I don't like how you treat my friends. And so the detective's like, what is he talking about, Justin? He's like, I have no idea. So they ask Justin to step outside, and he does. So they're like, okay, tell us more. And that's the last that we see of that whole conversation. The next thing that we see is Candace getting to her floor, and she's banging on Charles's door like, Charles. And his security guy's like, hold on, stop. And she's like, don't touch me. Charles opens the door, and she's like, I need my phones. Give me my phones. Because, of course, he took her phones before, and she's probably pissed off. But she's like, had you not took my phones, I could have maybe known that my son was dead. So when she gets her phones, she immediately calls Benny. Of course, she gets Benny's voicemail, and she's like, Benny, it's me, call me back. And then she's like, Charles, what happened? And he's like, I don't know. I was just asked to speak up at the conference. And she's like, did you do this? And he was like, no, I would never do this. Not at all. And she's like, what happened? He's like, I don't know, but, I'll find out for you. She then goes into her room. She calls Erica. Erica picks up. She's like, Erica, I need you. I'm in room 3301. Get down here now. Erica's like, okay, fine. Erica then hangs up. Erica then calls War. War, she's at this hotel. She's in room 3301. Get here. He's like, okay, keep it there until I get there. Candace then calls her mom. She calls her mom. Hannah answers. What do you want? And she's like, is it true? And she's like, yeah. So my son is dead. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, what happened? Tell me what happened. Hannah tells her the whole thing. War came looking for you. They got into it with Benny and Mitch. He started shooting up the place. And Quincy got shot and he died from it. And as she's talking, Candace is crying. And she's like, why didn't you protect him? And she's like, Hannah's like, what? And she was like, he wouldn't have gotten shot if you had protected him. And she's like, I was laying on top of that child. And she's like, well, how did he get shot if you were laying on top of him? And then Hannah kind of was like, I don't know. Which is true. That's really true. I say that to myself, that I did wonder how he got shot and she didn't. Just based on his wounds. But you know, bullets fly, you never know how they hit. She then says, you know, if you was laying on top of him, why didn't you get shot? She was like, you're a liar. You're lying. You know, you are the one who should be dead. And she hangs up. I'm like, man. But you have to think, Candace was a horrible mother. She was not a good mother. We clearly know that she was not a good mother for many, many reasons. I do, however, think that she thought, because her mama had Quincy, he would be safe. But she also should have known war was crazy. So it ain't that your mama got him, that your mom got him killed, that she didn't protect him. You didn't protect that boy. You know what I'm saying? It was you. And I think that's the reason why she is so angry, because she know 98% of this is all her fault. I give 2% is to Quincy, the daddy, and now when I say 1% is for Quincy, the daddy, and the other 1% is because war is just, well, no, you know what? Candace is 70% at fault. The other 30%, you know, 15 to 15 goes to war, and the other 15 goes to the daddy. Because it was just they all failed that boy. Not Hannah, but war, crazy ass, Candace, just for not being, you know, a proper mother, and his daddy for keeping him away so long, which led Candace to just not care about life. You know what I'm saying? She became a different person when she thought her son was murdered. That's also a reason probably why she's taking it so hard, because she thought he was dead, found out he was alive, and now he's really dead. But both times when she thought her son was dead, it was still times when she wasn't with him. You know what I'm saying? That has to be a horrible thing to feel as a failure as a parent. So, you know, after Candace hangs up on Hannah, she then calls Mitch. And Mitch is like, you know, how are you? You know, how would you be? He's like, you know, I know, I'm so sorry. And then she's like, are you sure it was him? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. We saw his face. It was definitely war. He came in and he sprayed the face. You know, what you want to do? And she's like, I want him dead. Bottom line. You know, I want him dead. And he's like, okay, you know, get him to my grandmother's restaurant and we can handle this. And she's like, okay, I can get him there. Mitch then calls his family and tells his family, you know, his grandmother is looking for war. And she's like, he calls the family restaurant and say, hey, let, you know, grandma know I'm bringing war there, so be prepared. And they're like, okay, so you're finally in the family. He's like, look, just let Mama Rose know, you know, we bringing them there. It's gonna be some shit. So next we see Erica gets to Candace's room. And she's all dressed all nice and stuff. Like, hey, Candace. What's up, Candace? Because, of course, when Candace called her, she didn't tell her that she knew Quincy, her son, was dead. Even though we know Erica, no. And she know War did it. So they sit down. And she's like, why does her clothes smell like War? And she's like, Candace, I told you, you know, I don't know. And she was like, right, because you don't deal with low-life people like that, right? And she's like, yeah, I have no idea why my clothes smell like him. She's like, where would you get that, you know, cheap smelling cologne from? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she keeps saying, you know, I don't know. You should trust me. I'm your friend. I would never betray you. I'm on your side. Blah, 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 blah. Lying through her goddamn gone teeth. And Candace is just looking at her, knowing she lying, but she not saying nothing. Candace picks up her phone. She calls War. War answers. And, you know, he's like, I've been looking for you. She was like, yep. And he was like, you know, where are you? And she tells him where she is, you know. She also says something like, because he said, like, you lied to me. And she said, yep, I did. And he like, oh, so you admit it? And she was like, yep. And he's like, so you did get 7.2. And she was like, yep. And he was like, you know you got to die, right? And she was like, you killed my son. And he was like, that was an accident. And he's like, but I'm finna come to you. You gonna wait for me? And she was like, no. It was a whole back and forth thing. Well, you gonna wait for me? No. Where you at? You know where I'm at. And then she kept trying to get him to say, because as she's talking to War, she's looking dead at Erica. She's like, you know where I am. And he's like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And she's like, yes, you do. And she was like, but I'm not waiting. She then hangs up the phone. Erica phone thing. No, she says, give me your phone, Erica. Erica's like, what? And she's like, give me your phone. So she pulls out her phone and she gives it to Candace. It starts ringing from unknown number. She's like, answer, put it on speakerphone. It's David. So she spins David like, okay, I'm on the phone with a friend who's having trust issues. She's going to ruin, one of her good friendships, blah, 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 blah. I'll talk to you later. Candace and Erica, my leg was itching. Candace and Erica then leave. Okay, cool. When they leave, they get to the restaurant, to Mitch's grandmother's restaurant. And it's a nice restaurant and everything. It don't look like it's anybody in there that's about to kill people or nothing like that. And Erica's like, oh, this is nice. It looks expensive. And Ken's like, don't worry, I got it. And so Erica then says, you know what? I have to go to the bathroom real quick. So she goes to the bathroom. Now, see, I thought Candace was going to follow her and listen to her call War. But she didn't. So Mitch walks up and he gives Candace a hug. And she's like, okay, cool. And he's like, everything's set. Don't worry about it. Stay calm. She's like, it's okay. It's fine. And he says to her, everything's all set. Just stay low. My guys are really good, but you just never know what could happen. And he's like, is War coming? And she's like, yep, I'm pretty sure she's calling him right now to tell him where we are. And he's like, who, Erica? And she's like, yep. And he's like, I know you can never trust her. You can't trust the bitch, not at all. So they go sit down. Shoot to a scene of Benny in the interrogation room. A cop come in and says, Benny Young? And he's like, look, what? He's like, you're free to go? And Benny's like, I'm free to go. And he's like, yeah. He's like, is that my phone? He gets Benny's phone. He's like, you're free to go. Benny leaves out, steps outside, calls his mom to come get him. But still saying he doesn't know what was going on, but he's free, come get him. That's fine. The ending scene. Charles is at his convention thing or whatever. He's been introduced, or addressed as the possible future president of the United States. And he's kind of talking and things like that. Like, okay, yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I love Georgians, blah, 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 blah. Then it cuts to a scene of War walking in the restaurant. So Candace is sitting on one side, Erica's sitting on the other side. War walks in and he sits down next to Erica. So Erica kind of looks up and she looks scared as she looks at Candace. Mainly because she don't know what's going to happen. So as this is happening, Charles is talking at his whole, thing. He's saying how, I'm so happy to, be on this path to possibly being president, gun violence. So sad that a kid died and the kid was killed. I know his family personally. It's a tragedy. Let's have a moment of silence. Within this moment of silence, you see War sit down. You see Mitch's people within the restaurant, but you then see War brought his own shooters. Yes, he brought his shooters. And they then walk in. But Candace just sitting there like she looks calm, cool, and collected. She's not even budging. And War's looking at her like he want to kill her. And the shootout just happens. So as Charles is having a moment of silence for the gun violence that killed Lil Q, they having a whole shootout inside Mama Road's restaurant. I mean, like a full-fledged shootout. Everybody shooting. You do see Erica get under the table. You do see someone tackle Candace and cover her up. We found out that was Mitch who protected her from being shot. But it's just pow, 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 pow. Like it's shots ringing out everywhere. And I'm still, I'm in my house yelling, God dang it, is War dead? Is where War is he? I'm trying to rewind, fast forward to see if they hit him. Sure enough, when all the shooting stops, War is laying there and he's dead. Or he's shot and he's bleeding. Can't say dead because they haven't, took his body into the body bag. So we see Mitch pick Candace up like, are you okay? Are you okay? They do show War. He looks dead. Everybody been shot. it's all kind of dead people, you know. They show Erica, who's still under the table. She's alive. So Erica wasn't hit. Mitch wasn't hit. And Candace wasn't hit. And Charles is saying, as Charles was saying about, you know, it was a great moment of silence. You see Hannah was at her house watching him on TV talk about Lil Q and giving that moment of silence and saying, you know, I hope his family, you know, can find peace or whatnot. And she then cuts her TV off to go get Benny, and then it goes off. Man, I'm so goddamn happy they killed War ass. I've been saying War need to die a long time. War needed to die when he basically raped Candace them couple times at her house. He raped her at her house once before. He raped her and when she took him some money on like the fence when Mitch seen it happen. I'm like, War should have died then. I can't wait to see how they're gonna torture Erica, because now Candace is aware that Erica was giving War information, and basically Erica's the reason that Quincy is dead too, because Erica told War where to find Candace at the hotel. Had she never told War where they were, he wouldn't have went there and shot the place. So I'm pretty sure it's gonna be some sort of hell to pay for Erica monkey ass. They do show a clip of the next episode. My battery won't die. The next episode, and Mama Rose is saying, "Who is this girl?" And it's Erica, and then asking Mitch, "Do you want her to live?" They gonna probably pimp her out. I don't know. I'm just very happy that War is dead. I'm happy that part of the story is over. So now there's no more of who she's running from or nothing like that. And I'm thinking, are they going to try to pin Quincy's murder on War in some way? Because it'll be a thing of War killed Father Quincy. He then killed baby Quincy, and he tried to kill Candace. So can Charles spin it to where War was a crazy, jealous ex, and he, you know, did all this stuff, killed her, buried, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, can that be the story and how it's spent? So I'm anxious to see where the story goes. I think they say it's 3 episodes left. I'm pretty sure they're not going to tie together any loose ends, you know, by the end of these next 3 episodes. But I am excited to see how this season kind of wraps up. So that was my review of the Have and Have Nots. I am Jay Lee. This is Jay Lee's Corner. And until next time, people.